We were gutting Grandpa's workshop, dividing a lifetime of labor 3 ways. My uncle sat at the reunion banquet with the smug grin of a man who'd already won, entirely unaware of the true inheritance Grandpa had hidden for me on a single, encrypted flash drive. My Uncle Raymond stood up at the annual family seafood boil, tapped his microbrew bottle with a crab mallet, and announced that the family had unanimously decided to sell my grandfather's maritime engineering patents and the Seattle waterfront warehouse. He intended to split the $5.8 million corporate buyout between him, my Aunt Vivienne, and my father. My father passed away suddenly from a pulmonary embolism 22 months ago. Raymond knew that. He was banking his retirement on it. He stared straight through me when he declared the split. I was 24, the sole heir of the only brother who couldn't defend himself anymore, and Raymond had decided my grief made me a rounding error. Vivienne smiled placidly, nodding like this hostile takeover was a beautiful tribute. Raymond's new wife, Camille, practically glowed, already spending the millions on a second home in Cabo. I sat perfectly motionless because 8 weeks prior, my grandfather had pressed a heavy UB key into my palm and whispered, "Keep this safe until the vultures circle." He suffered a fatal stroke 14 days later. I had kept the drive hidden, not because I lacked curiosity, but because he explicitly told me to wait for the betrayal. Watching Raymond dismantle an 80-year-old family legacy before the chowder was even served felt like the perfect cue. Raymond had done his homework. He pulled out a laminated term sheet and outlined a wildly skewed distribution: 75% to him as senior consultant, 20% to Vivienne, and a flat $50,000 payout to my father's estate. He used the phrase charitable severance for my dad's portion. My dad stopped working at the shop because he was attached to an oxygen tank, desperately fighting to stay alive long enough to see me finish my engineering degree, which he missed by a single semester. Yet Raymond categorized his terminal illness as a failure to log billable hours. His oldest son, Brett, leaned over and muttered, "Don't cause a scene, kid. Just take the 50 grand. Raymond declared, "If there are no objections, my lawyers will finalize the asset transfer by Tuesday at 9 a.m. I unzipped my backpack and pulled out the thick, leather-bound portfolio I had printed directly from the decrypted flash drive. The cover bore my grandfather's embossed seal. I dropped it heavily onto the picnic table right over Raymond's term sheet. Inside was an irrevocable trust. The waterfront property, the corporate entity, and every single maritime patent had been legally transferred into my exclusive control a full year before his stroke. It was notarized, registered with the state, and fortified with an ironclad clause. My grandfather had handed his empire to me and sworn the attorneys to absolute secrecy. Raymond snatched the portfolio. The smug confidence drained from his face. "This is fraudulent," he stammered. "The state corporate registry completely disagrees," I replied. He was heavily medicated. He didn't know what he was signing. His primary neurologist, the senior law partner, and 3 independent witnesses swore under oath that he was in perfect cognitive health, I countered. Vivienne leaned in, her jaw dropping. Camille aggressively shoved her phone into her purse. Raymond slammed his fist down. "You brainwashed a vulnerable old man. I worked alongside a brilliant man every single weekend for 3 years," I said, my voice cutting through the humid air. "I helped him calibrate his turbines. I swept the aluminum shavings off his floor, and I sat by his hospital bed reading him trade magazines. I never demanded a single dime. He drafted this trust entirely on his own." The entire pavilion fell dead silent. "You showed up at the shop exactly 3 times last year," I continued, staring daggers at him. "Once to ask for a loan and twice to bring appraisers to evaluate the real estate. He told me about every single visit. He told me you asked the appraiser, 'How fast can we bulldoze this place once the old man kicks it?'" Vivienne gasped. "Raymond, did you seriously say that to a stranger?" He couldn't even form a coherent denial. I pulled the portfolio back. "The patents aren't being sold. The property is not being redeveloped. Grandpa's original drafting table stays exactly where it is. The shop remains independent. If any of you want to come by and honor his memory, the door is open. But I run this company now." As I stood up to leave, my grandfather's veteran shop foreman, Walter, who had been sitting quietly near the grill, intercepted me. He squeezed my shoulder and whispered with a fierce grin, "He told me the plan months ago. He said the only one willing to get their hands dirty was the only one fit to hold the keys."